At a family reunion years ago, on my 13th birthday, my grandpa and I woke up early to fish on the large lake near our campsite. We borrowed my uncle's bass boat and headed out to find a good spot. While cruising, we spotted a damaged jet ski, its front end and handlebars mangled, drifting among some rocks. My grandpa and I exchanged a glance, both sensing what we might find. Without a word, we steered toward the rocks and saw a man floating face down in the water, clearly deceased. We contacted the authorities and stayed nearby to guide them to the location. About 20 minutes later, they arrived, retrieved the body, and we saw his head was severely injured. Apparently, he'd been intoxicated the previous night, speeding on his jet ski and crashed into the rocks. He was probably in his 40s, if I recall correctly. We continued fishing afterward in silence, moving to a different spot far from the scene. Didn't catch anything, though, which is kind of funny in hindsight. Love that you kept fishing. We relocated to a spot out of view from the incident. While running a quick errand from my house, I noticed an elderly woman parked on the roadside. On my way back, her car was still there, and she seemed unconscious. I stopped, but her doors were locked, so I called 911. They determined she had passed away. This happened while I was living near Lake Lanier in North Georgia. It's wild to think she pulled over before dying. That was considerate of her. I worked at a movie theater, and weekday mornings were usually quiet. After a showing of The Hateful Eight, I went to clean the theater, which only had two people, one in the back and one near the front. I saw the guy up front, assumed he was asleep. People sometimes doze off. I called out to wake him, but he didn't respond. Feeling uneasy, I got my manager, who shook him, realized something was wrong, and called the police. The man was dead. What about the person in the back? The movie was loud, so they probably didn't notice anything. How does the movie's volume relate to the person in the back noticing the death? The guy up front was choking. The person in the back had already left by the time I went to clean, but I knew they were there because we had reserved seating, so I could see their seat choice. When I was 14, my dad had a heart attack at home. The paramedics couldn't save him. He passed away that Thursday around 6 or 7 p.m. After they left, I went into my parents' bedroom to grab something and saw my father's body on the bed, covered with a blanket. That day, I lost my dad, saw his body, learned paramedics leave the deceased where they are, and felt the weight of true silence. Were you alone? That seems like a lack of care for a 14-year-old whose father just died. I'm so sorry, and I hope you're doing okay, as cliché as that sounds. My mom was home, so I wasn't alone. The paramedics likely explained things to her, but she was probably in shock and didn't realize I'd see my dad when I entered the room. Same here, I was 17 when I lost my dad. It hurt that I never got to know him as an adult, only as a kid. While playing hide-and-seek in the woods, I chased my cousin, tripped, and fell over what I thought was a rock. When I turned to free my shoe, I saw it was a white bone, a pelvis, though I didn't know the term then. I screamed, and my older cousins rushed over, finding me crying near a skeleton in the dirt. We told my parents, and since we were deep in the woods, one cousin stayed near the body, another stood 50 feet away, and we formed a human trail to guide the police back to it. Human breadcrumbs is a chilling phrase. I'm sorry you went through that. It's even creepier hearing it said aloud. It's not a big deal. Stuff like that happens where I live. What was the skeleton? I don't recall the details, but it was about a year old and partially buried. It might have been a special needs person who got lost and was never found. I remember that case from when I was a kid. My youngest sister babysat for a divorced woman with 2 kids at the end of our block. The woman's ex-husband, worried after not hearing from her for days, came by her house but got no answer. He stopped at our place to ask if my sister knew anything, as the kids sometimes stayed with her. My sister wasn't home, but I went with him to check. We knocked, and when there was no response, he opened the unlocked door. The woman's body was in the living room. Her kids had been taken by her boyfriend. The ex-husband, in shock, called the police and shared what he knew. My sister later answered questions about the boyfriend, describing his vehicle and appearance. I think they caught him in San Antonio, if I recall correctly. Were the kids okay? Yes, they were found unharmed at the boyfriend's mother's house, I believe. She turned him in after seeing the news. I've tried finding the article but don't want to upset my sister by asking, as it still bothers her. I don't remember the woman's name. It sounds familiar, maybe from a podcast. This was around 2006 or 2007 in Pflugerville, Texas, likely reported as Austin since it's a nearby suburb. I was with my then-girlfriend, now wife, in a Boston penthouse she shared with her brother. One Sunday morning, we stepped onto the deck and saw a sweater hanging over the railing. Below, 23 floors down, a man had jumped to his death. His shoes were destroyed from the impact. Police interviewed us, and we went on with our day. It was tragic. One morning, I let my dogs out and noticed my neighbor sitting in a lawn chair in his yard. It was cold, so I thought he might have fallen asleep the night before. As I got closer, I saw he wasn't moving, then noticed a pool of blood and a shotgun. He'd shot himself in the chest. He was an older ex-cop whose wife died a year earlier, and he might have had bad medical news. It was surreal. A coworker found a body while inspecting a county ditch in the woods. He called the sheriff and took the day off. In a popular forest near my town, my friends and I were cutting through after school when one screamed, then another, and I froze. A man had hanged himself. The flies' buzzing still haunts me. I shared my story earlier, but the flies' sound sticks with me too. Oddly, there was no smell despite it being summer and the body being there for days. The buzzing is unforgettable. As a teen, around 18, I found a man in his 50s who'd hanged himself from a tree near a lake in a London suburb, close to a school. The rope had loosened, and he was sitting between two trees, back to us, so it wasn't immediately clear he was dead. My boyfriend and I, looking for a private spot, were startled to see someone in the bushes. We called out, thinking he might be homeless, but got no response. My boyfriend nearly poked him with a stick, but I saw the rope and realized he'd hanged himself. His face was pale, like a mannequin, with blood dripping from his ear and flies buzzing. I went into mild shock. My boyfriend called the police while leading me back to the path. It wasn't scary, just surreal and sad. The police later said he'd been missing from a local mental hospital for a week. He had a wife and 2 kids. I'm glad we found him. His spot was secluded but not too hidden, so he'd be found eventually. I found my friend's mom's body. She was like a second mom to me. Visiting from college, I asked where she was, and my friend said she hadn't gotten out of bed. I checked on her and found her dead, gray with open eyes. I touched her and she was cold and stiff. In shock, I told my friend, called the police, gave a statement, and drove home numb. On the way, I called my mom and the emotions hit. I cried and screamed at her house. They suspect she overdosed on meth, a known issue for her, but no autopsy was done. For a while, I couldn't sleep with locked doors, fearing I'd die and not be found until I was like her. It's been 10 years and I'm okay now. Driving past an elderly woman sitting on her walker by the road in winter, I noticed she was still there 30 minutes later on my return. I stopped to check, and she took her last breath. Another person stopped, and we did CPR until paramedics arrived, who pronounced her dead in the ambulance. I was driving my daughter to her part-time job on a clear, sunny day. After dropping her off, traffic stopped. 3 cars ahead, I saw a young man, early 20s, lying next to his motorcycle on the road, motionless. No helmet. He was hit by a truck, likely seconds after we passed. He was pronounced dead at the scene. I didn't know him, but I think of him sometimes. There's a roadside shrine for him now, which we see when driving to my daughter's job. It's heartbreaking. As a kid with a paper route, I delivered to a retirement complex. One day, stepping out of the elevator, I saw blood seeping under the corridor door. Opening it, I found an elderly woman face down, blood pouring from her head, her apartment door open. I tried to help, but she was gone. I tossed the paper into her flat and ran to the warden's apartment. Over 40 years later, I remember it vividly. The police offered counseling and a McDonald's trip. I still laugh about delivering the paper. It was a free one, so it was automatic, but I feel silly about it now. This happened in November with my housemate, Charlie, 31, 2 days before his 32nd birthday. It was traumatic. The house's other residents, a mother and son, were away for a family wedding, leaving me, Charlie, and their old blind dog, who often had accidents indoors. Around 10 a.m., while cleaning up after the dog, I saw Charlie in a patio chair with a blanket, his head slumped. My gut knew he was gone, but I told myself he was sleeping since we'd talked at 1 a.m. about his birthday plans. He worked 80-hour weeks, so I figured he needed rest. An hour later, heading out for breakfast, I tried waking him. He didn't respond. His eyes were open, and when I touched his shoulder and neck, he was cold, clearly gone for hours. I stood frozen, staring through the back door, then called 911. Responders arrived fast: police, firefighters, EMTs, and examiners. The autopsy showed 100% fentanyl. I knew he struggled with addiction, but not fentanyl. I was likely the last to see him alive. Eating was hard for weeks after. 3 days ago, on vacation in Germany, my friends and I visited a large castle on a hill. surrounded by a wall with a 50-meter drop. While exploring, a friend noticed something odd below. We saw a woman's body, her hips and neck at unnatural angles. At first I thought she was unwell, but it was clear she was dead. We couldn't reach her, so others called the police and we left. The next day, news reported a woman found dead near the castle, with an ongoing investigation into whether she fell or something struck her. The sight was unsettling, and some friends were deeply shaken, dampening the rest of our day. I'd forgotten until reading this, but I saw a teen girl jump to her death from the top floor of a mall's food court atrium. Kids were mocking her weight, and she climbed onto a table and stepped off. Looking down, it was clear she was gone. It's heartbreaking, and worse, the kids who egged her on faced no consequences. The upscale mall offered group counseling for workers, but I didn't go. I managed a store, and those who attended seemed to dramatize their trauma, despite not witnessing it. Driving my scooter through an Amsterdam neighborhood, I heard a bang and saw a man in leathers and a helmet sprint across the street, hop on his motorbike and speed off. Where he came from, a body lay face down in blood. Another time, while glider flying at a small airfield on a hot day, thunderclouds rolled in. I was at the winch truck helping launch gliders. The operator, nervous about lightning, cut the steel cable in the air. While retrieving it from the airfield, rain started. I hooked the cable to a car when a loud bang came from the field's edge near the hangars. Thinking it was an engine issue, I drove closer, saw smoke, and smelled something odd. People were doing CPR on a smoldering figure. A parajumper hit by lightning, instantly killed. I realized I'd been holding a steel cable in a storm and stayed indoors during thunderstorms after that. In my city, suitcases were found in a creek, one containing severed arms. More suitcases held other body parts, a whole person dismembered with a meat saw. The culprit, a former butcher, panicked when his girlfriend overdosed on heroin, chopped her up and dumped her. He was caught because a store camera recorded him buying 8 gallons of bleach. Another case, 2 girls, high with their friend who overdosed, washed her body in a bathtub and dumped it. They faced minor charges for moving a corpse. Were they on drugs? Definitely. They were all using, and she took too much. In North Jersey, my dad stopped at a gas station, not to pump gas since that's not a thing here. He freaked out, insisting there was a dead body nearby because he recognized the smell from finding bodies in Vietnam. The attendant was confused, but my dad was adamant. Police arrived and found a body in a nearby ditch. They asked how he knew, and he said the sweet, distinct odor of death was unmistakable from his war experience. My best friend found her dad dead on the kitchen floor as teens. She called me, and I ran over. The lawnmower was still running outside, the sink was on, and a fly buzzed in and out of his mouth. An autopsy revealed a brain aneurysm. I still feel for her. As a paramedic, I encounter deceased people weekly. One surprising case was a cardiac arrest call. A woman claimed her neighbor was dead because he missed their daily tea. We thought she was overreacting, but when he didn't answer the door, policy required firefighters to break in. They hesitated, but a police officer climbed through a window, opened the door, and confirmed the man was dead. The neighbor who'd had tea with him daily for 40 years was right. We were stunned. I woke up at 2 a.m. for water and passed my fiancé, thinking he was asleep on the couch gaming. When I touched him to come to bed, he was cold and not breathing. It was the worst day of my life. We'd celebrated our 10-year anniversary the night before. He had a heart attack in his sleep. Same for me. I kissed my partner goodnight after a great evening, said, "I love you, see you tomorrow," and woke to find him gone. It's only been months and I'm still coping, but I hope to heal like you. I'm sorry. It's rough early on, but it eases with time. I hold on to memories, even in a new relationship. The grass does get greener. At 11, I woke up looking for my mom and couldn't find her. I checked her side of the bed and found her dead on the floor. This was 1992. She was 27. I'm 43 now. Turning 28 was hard, feeling young while knowing all she missed. I'm so sorry. Why did she die? It was an overdose, cocaine and pain meds per the autopsy I read as an adult. We went into foster care after. I have one photo of me, my brother, sister, and mom when I was 6. Without it, I wouldn't recall her face. I live fully for my daughters now, but some days, especially her death anniversary, I see her lying there. Life is short. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next chilling tale.